Yo guys, welcome back to another Danmachi Memoria Freese video. Okay, so trying a different decibel level, different tone and different distance from my phone recording this video because I'm still waiting on my PC to arrive. I do apologize for the background noise. There's only so much I can do, and there's only so often you can tell a 4-year-old to just shh, you know. Anyway, so today's video we're going to go over how much Irish you're going to be getting passively in part 3. Let me explain what I mean by passive. When I say passively, I mean Irish you're going to get just through the course of playing the game. Now obviously parts of this I've had to estimate because part 3 hasn't come out yet, and then obviously there's the other things that I just can't. Other things have been left out, like additional login bonuses, because how can I know what Irish we're going to get for additional login bonuses? Also we're going to be going over the banners, which banner is good for what, which direction you should lean, what banners to go for depending on what your account requires. So to start off with, we're going to be getting 1,000 Irish from the login bonus. That means over the course of 3 weeks we will be getting 1,000 Irish just by logging in. So it should be, I don't have the slides in front of me, so I'm going on memory here. It should be 240 for the first 2 weeks and then 520 on the third week. We're also, the slides, I should be remembering to put the slides in with the information on during editing, so you should be seeing this in front of you even though I'm not. We should be getting 300 Irish for the very hard clearance of each part. So no, not each part, so it's 100 Irish per part. So clearing every chapter of part 1, part 2 and part 3 on very hard will get you 100 Irish per part, which is 300 Irish, taking our total Irish up to 1,300 thus far. The period will last 4 weeks, which means we will have at least 2 record busters and 2 war games. So if we count I'm going to go for the largest bulk of players that I can here, like averaging it out. So given the size of the EU server, which I'm going to take for reference here, it shouldn't be too hard for people to score in the top 2,000 and get I think it's 600 Irish for the top 2,000. And if you do that twice, that's 1,200 Irish just from record buster. That takes us up to 2,500 Irish. Then if you include the 2 war games, now let's be honest here, if you've been playing for even a little while or a couple months or whatever, you shouldn't have a problem getting to King 1. Oh, my screen locked, sorry. Shouldn't have a problem getting to King 1, which basically will get you 700 Irish again, I think, if I'm correct here. So that's 1,400 Irish over the 2 war games we'll get over the course of part 3. That takes the total up to 3,900. Now we get into the estimated area. Right, I'm trying to cover this Irish part really quickly so I can move on to the units and banners. I'm going to estimate this. So if we take it based on the previous chapters, you'll probably have possibly 23 or 24 chapters to cover in the story. In the tail, we'll say tail, right? And say estimate 5 of those chapters will be cinematic, which you'll get 5 Irish for. So that's 25 Irish, taking the total up to 3,925 Irish. You then have, say, we're going to estimate here 18 other chapters to complete within the story. So if you go over that, completing every, we'll call them combat chapters because you have to fight, clear them all. That gives you across normal, hard and very hard, that will give you an additional 216 Irish, taking the grand total up to 4,141 Irish. So basically, if you're like me and you have at least 4,000 Irish and you're patient enough to wait for basically the course of part 3, you will have enough to summon all 10 steps on both banners. Hopefully you've been a little bit clever. Hopefully you watched my part 2 budgeting video and it did help you out. I know a couple of people said, yeah, it really helped out. So because they knew how much they could get away with spending prior to that, even though they were budgeting. Excuse me, I need a drink. So that, I'm gonna put it again. I'm gonna repeat it again. Post it on here if I remember editing. Remember to put it in editing. The total passive iris gain you're gonna get from part 3, not including Familiar War Game or Familiar Rush or anything like that, because that takes variances into consideration that won't allow me to generalize for a larger portion of the player base. So we'll just ignore that, and we'll call that active iris, because whatever. So on the screen, 4,141 iris. There you go. That's your budget right there. And it only took 6 minutes to record, just under. Okay, now we're going to move on to the units and banners. I'm not going to review the actual units because every single one of these units are good. I'm a bit on the fence about both assists, so let's jump over to the Reddit Discord channel. We're over here on the Memoria Freese Reddit Discord server. Big shout out to you guys for posting these screenshots. I do have them over on my server. They're just not as even. They're not as well organized. So we're over here, right? So Freya here. Allies counter rate plus 20%. Always welcome on all forms of content, because counter attacks actually provide a large amount of damage for completing any content. And then enemy crit rate, pen rate, and guard rate minus 10%. So she'll definitely be good for record busters as well as wargame. Move along to the second support, Alan. Now Alan, I love his agility stat, and I love the fact that he debuffs agility by 15%. And then my only issue is don't get me wrong, they're high buffs, but they're only self. So being a wargame assist and then only boosting self from crit and pen, I feel like he can be. You can get away with having another assist with a lower agility debuff to provide more buffs for the whole team rather than just one unit. But I do think he's good. It's just my opinion that I feel like he's a bit. It does depend on the team that you're using, I think. Moving over to Otar. Okay, so the skills are special. I think I went over the skills in the previous video, so I'm just going to leave them on the screen here for now. I'm going to read, and while you're reading them, I'm going to give you my opinion on him. He's going to hit ridiculously hard, stupid hard. He's very self-sufficient. Obviously, he's designed for bosses and record buster, and he's most likely going to be the go-to unit for stage 3 of Familiar Rush. Me being a record buster player, I prefer record buster over wargame. I'm gonna prioritize getting this Otar. I've done the same for Eyes in part 2, Reveria in part 1. I MLB'd both. I'm gonna aim to MLB this Otar as well. On the bright side here, well, I say bright side, on the additional side, he also provides something that we seriously lack in this game, and that is decent earth units. I mean, I know we have Aisha for record busters, but she herself has a very niche playstyle anyway. She removes her own buffs, which I think is a bit of it's a very large drawback. So it's good to have a single target earth unit for record busters that actually is going to be there and consistently provide that damage. I know Aisha still hits hard regardless, but I feel like Otar is going to be more beneficial, especially because he lowers physical resist and earth resist himself, as well as guard rate. Buffs his own strength and earth damage, and then on top of that does more. I feel like the biggest niche in his arsenal is this: the lower his HP, the more damage his counters do, which basically explains why he gives himself 60% counter rate with his SA. He basically, if you can extend that to more than one turn, which you probably can do if you've got OG Haru, if you can make it so that his base health is going to remain lower, I hope it works with his base health anyway. This is just my train of thought. I don't know whether it's the lower his health in general or the lower his health percentage based on his total health. you know, counts for the increase in damage. So basically you want to try and find a way to keep him lower on health. I mean, I'm hoping that this counts for if you can make his total health lower rather than just his current health in comparison to his total health. That would be that will make it a lot easier to sort of manipulate this very niche ability. But he is an amazing unit. He is obviously Otar. He's just going to slap people. His skill 3 I think is ridiculous, like lowering strength and magic by 45%. I mean, 2 turns you can extend that anyway, so it's not even a big deal. It's like, imagine being hit so hard that you forget how to hit back. That's essentially what they're saying here with skill 3. It's like, oh, he's going to hit you so hard that he's going to make you weaker. Sorry, that made me chuckle a little bit, sorry. But we're going to move on to the next unit. Finn, I feel like is, even if you get, he's the unit I'm going to say, like, oh my bad, sorry. He's another, obviously with it being earth and wind. So I've not scripted this, so it's like straight off the cuff. So I'm just like verbalizing my thoughts as they happen. He is the one here that I think even if you get one copy of him, he will be an extreme asset, because wind obviously is the very popular opinion that wind is underpowered. For, like, to keep it polite, wind is very underpowered and you know, underutilized. I feel like wind with this Finn has got an extreme buff now. I mean, obviously he's clearly wired towards wargame. You know, you can see that in the fact that he's got a strength buff, agility buff, but the fact that he can buff strength and then lower wind resistance. He's also going to be amazing for AoE wind zones with his skill 2, just being able to remove or reduce resistance buffs by 3 turns, which means, because you get those AoE zones, where AoE 7 zones where they add additional resistances, and let's just wait for the siren to disappear, I think. Yay, East London. It's an amazing place. His skill 2, when they add additional turns of resistances, this is going to remove that, so it might even make it easier to use alternative elements in wind 7 zones and things like that. Just a thought. It's just, I know it's like, it's very off out of the box type thought, but you know, it's just a thought. I feel like he is an asset to the wind element regardless, even if you don't MLB him. Also, if you do MLB him, pair him up with Light Eyes for war games, and stall teams basically stand no chance. That's just how I'm seeing it here. I do think he is definitely worth his value. I'm not saying his value diminishes because you can use him with just one copy. That's for like off usage. So if you want to use him for what he's designed for, obviously having him MLB is better. This Alice, okay, so this Alice is essentially very similar to the previous one, only magic. She self-buffs. She doesn't lower resistances as far as I remember. No, she does not. But she does have a skill 3 that increases damage based on buffs. So she's going to hit reasonably hard anyway. She does... her skill 1 basically provides the only buff that the Wind Finn can't remove. However, I'm pretty sure Light Eyes can remove it in Wargame. Again, it feels like the majority of these units are going to be better for Wargame rather than Record Buster. I feel like Otar was basically the only unit designed for Record Buster, and everything else on both banners feels like it's designed for Wargame, or at least can be utilized in Wargames efficiently. Her skill 1, reducing AoE damage by 30%, is going to be an amazing buff. Plus it gives her the additional... They really piled on the additional actions on all of these units, and I kind of think they went overboard by giving it to like everyone. Like, it would have made more sense to... I mean, I understand that's why one of the reasons they've not put super modifiers on a lot of these units and gone to like mid or high at the maximum. but honestly, I feel like they've like oversold the additional actions with these units. As for this Alice, obviously, I do feel like she's going to be very useful in war games, especially because the fire element in general is such a solid physical rush. Adding her might not mesh well, seeing as she's magic, but with the fast modifier on her skill 1, it probably could work out. I do see her being pretty useful in war game. There isn't really much to say on her. There's not much niche about it. She is a good unit. Moving on to, who is this? Okay, finally the Ryu. Okay, I know we're on 15 minutes here, but I wanted to take my time with the units and then go over the banners. The Ryu, I don't think I gave enough time to acknowledge what she does. Her SA is definitely helpful. It is AoE, so I feel like SA in war games is sort of a luxury. You know, you're lucky if your fight lasts long enough for you to get one. With Finn being around now, obviously it happens a lot sooner, but I feel like SAs in war games are outliers, and I don't think you should really consider them or take them into consideration until the higher ranks, or if you face like stall teams every round. But having that laugh was so cringe, I'm sorry. Having a self wind buff of 100% will mean that even in AoE 7th zones, she is going to put out a buttload of damage later on, even though she's lacking she doesn't have a high AoE damage tag. She has a mid AoE damage tag. I feel like they've overbalanced her in a sense. She does, her skill 1 takes her wind damage up to 70%. And she buffs her magic and dex by 30%, so I suppose the SA isn't really that necessary either. 3 additional actions, lowers counter rate and guard rate by 30%. That is going to be so clutch. Imagine like you put everything you can. In my opinion, guard and counter are two of the most important attributes to take into war games, so reducing those by 30% puts your enemy at such a disadvantage. It's crazy. Doing that, she buffs wind element damage for herself and allies by 35%. Not that she needs it, she gives herself the 70% buff. I think she's a solid unit. She's definitely going to be very good for war games. Can I see the meta shifting towards wind in war game? No, not entirely, at least. I feel like there are too many wargame units that are currently around that are like, I don't want to say meta, I feel like they're only meta because they counter part of the meta, if that makes sense. So like Light Eyes, even things like Winter Bell, they're going to remain prevalent regardless, because removing, resistance buffs or strength and magic buffs will always tip the scale in your favor in war games. So units like that are still going to be around. I don't see wind like taking over war games entirely, but you probably will see more wind units around. I probably think you'll see more Finns than you will Ryu in war game, at least. But these units themselves will probably, besides war game, will carry over in for usefulness in AoE 7 zones at least. And if you can get the right teams, possibly do a substantial amount of damage for Record Buster, because they do have at least one single target attack plus all of the additional buffs. Now I'm gonna quickly, if I can find, just scroll through, sorry, I know it's not professional, the units. So basically how you would look at this, how I balanced this was that the Otar being on this banner meant that this banner was, I actually don't know, because Alan is definitely geared more towards Wargame, Otar geared towards Record Buster. I feel like they have done their best to meddle the banners. Like I said, out of the 6 units, 5 of them feel like they're leaning towards Wargame, and only Otar feels good for Record Buster. So how I would take it would be that you kind of going to need to do 10 steps on both anyway. But Earth and Wind are probably going to be the prevalent elements for Familiar Rush. So in my opinion, this is, as a Record Buster player, I prefer Record Buster over Wargame. I will be leaning towards this banner over the other banner because my Wargame team is not going to change. It's efficient, it gets me to Jester, that's all I need. I'm pretty sure I haven't shared my highest rank on the channels yet. I Jester 3, I get to Jester 3 and then I just sit there, because after that it's just Whale City. But as for both banners, usually I would say, oh, if you want Record Buster, go for this one. If you want Wargames, go for this one. But in this, I can probably still do that. But if you are predominantly Wargame player, I would probably say the Alice and Finn banner is for you, but you will need the Alan. Like, this is what I'm saying, they've really, oh, you want to play war games, you're going to need these two adventurers, but the assist is on the other banner type scenario, which really sucks, but it is what it is. I do believe, for me as a Record Buster player, this banner is the way for me to go. Wargame players, I would still say probably go for the Alice banner over the Otar banner, Ryu banner, and that's the advice that I'm going to stick to. Anyway, we're over 20 minutes now, guys. I hope this video has helped. If it did, or if you enjoyed it, or any, for any reason, or you can find whatever reason, if you're single, if you're not single, if if it's hot today, hit that like button for any reason. If you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe. I know I'm on my phone currently, but my PC will be delivered soon and I'll be back to the usual quality that we're all used to. So please subscribe for more content. As always, guys, I'll catch you later.